actually understand, because when you think of the opportunity cost, when you think of how much it would cost to give every community in Connecticut a luxurious, well-stocked library, and then you think of what it actually costs for every big, well-stocked library, and I have a couple in my district, I'll mention in a minute, that open their doors to everyone. There's nothing else really to say. I mean, that explains it all. You solve a problem, you address an issue simply by opening those doors and making everything available. And the second thing that I'd like to say is that this is such a small investment for such an enormous value. Rocket science. I just want to say, you already heard from Maxine Bleiweiss, who runs the amazing Westport Library, which is one of the towns I represent. Chris Bradley is also here from the Norwalk Public Library. And I know that Elaine Tylaria from the Wilton Library, which is where I live, would also be here. She is a huge supporter in the efforts to save these funds. So thank you all very much for coming.
I just want to thank everyone for coming to this wonderful rally to support libraries. My name is Devin Carney. I represent 4 wonderful towns with 4 wonderful libraries, Lyme, Old Saybrook, and Westbrook. We have the Lyme Library. Jim Bent here today is representing the Lyme Library. We have the Phoebe Griffin Noyes Library in Old Lyme, the Acton Public Library in Old Saybrook, and the Westbrook Public Library in Westbrook, and all of these libraries are so important. And being, I'm from Old Saybrook, and I know as a kid, coming from actually a hardworking single mother, I used the library as much as I possibly could while she was away at work. So I'd go to the library after school and do my homework, and they'd have wonderful programs there for kids. So one of the things that brings me the greatest joy, and I see it at all 4 libraries, is when I go there and see a packed parking lot, and I walk in and I see the very young all the way to the very old utilizing every aspect of the library. And so these cuts, we don't need these cuts. I think our libraries are doing such a wonderful job, and I'd hate to see even the fact that these 4 libraries that are so close to one another wouldn't be able to utilize the Kinetic card system. It's truly a travesty. So I'm working hard to fight these cuts, and I really want to thank you all for all of your efforts. You know, my constituents have done such a wonderful job getting in touch with me. I probably have over 100 emails from constituents all across the 4 towns that are fighting this. So thank you very much, and let's continue our efforts. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Ted Kennedy Jr. I'm the newly elected state senator from the shoreline of Connecticut. I am so pleased as I look around the room, I see people who are here from the Scranton, representing the Scranton Library in Madison. I know there are people here representing the Branford Willoughby Wallace Library, the Guilford Free Public Library. Am I missing someone?
Durham!
Durham! And I'm here, and I would also just like to tell you, this is one of the most valuable things. This is my library card to the James Blackstone Memorial Library, which is the jewel of the shoreline, for those of you who haven't been there. And I'm here just to tell you that, in my view, libraries are just more than a place where people can go and check out a book. They are the cement, the glue that holds a lot of the community fabric together. You know that. The activities that take place in these libraries bring our communities together. When people drive by the Blackstone Library, to me, it looks like a cathedral. And I know that you feel the same way about the libraries in your communities. And I'm new enough to be able to say, I don't think we should just restore the cuts of our public library system. I think we need to increase it. So pleased that all of you are here to show up and knock on the doors of your state representatives and state senators here to let us know how important these critical services are. Because you all know we do face a tough budgetary time, and we know we're always asked to do more with less. And as my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, this is a nonpartisan issue. We all care about the education, about the literacy, about the social fabric of our communities. It's not a Democratic idea or a Republican idea, it's the right idea, and that's why we're all here. But I think we know we need to hear from our constituents, because there's going to be a lot of tough decisions that need to be made, and I just want to thank each and every person, including the young people, because this is the future of our state. To come here to Hartford, and we're so pleased. I know many of you had to take the day off to come here, and I just want to say thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. And I know I speak for all of my colleagues here that we are going to make sure that these cuts are restored so that every citizen of our state has access to the library system that we know does so much for so many people. Thank you.
We'd like to thank our legislators for being with us today for this report. I'm pleased to introduce Jennifer Cohane. She's the Executive Director of the Connecticut Library Consortium. And remember, it's a great return on investment right on our poster, $332.5 for $7.1 million in savings. And she's going to talk more about that. She was previously the Business Outreach Librarian at the Simsbury Public Library and was honored with the 2011 I Love My Librarian Award by the New York Times Carnegie Corporation of New York. Jennifer.
That's right.
Thank you all for coming out here today. It's really, really great to see so many people out here who are willing to speak up on behalf of Connecticut's libraries. As Carl said, I'm Jennifer Cohane. I'm a librarian, I'm a school library media specialist, and I'm the executive director of the Connecticut Library Consortium. And until today, I thought I was one of the loudest librarians in Connecticut. So thanks to you, I think that the shushing factor is going to go down significantly. As you heard, the state operating grant that the Connecticut Library Consortium receives from the Connecticut State Library is currently slated to be zeroed out in the proposed budget. Most of you didn't even know the existence of Connecticut Library Consortium before today, or maybe until recently. But you realize the benefits of our work every time you use your library. And to paraphrase a popular ad campaign, CLC is the BASF of Connecticut library world. We're not a library. We help make libraries better and more efficient. Hunter, you should love CLC. Why? Because basically, we go out and find suppliers and negotiate the best prices we can on books, databases, and other critical materials that Connecticut libraries need to serve all the people in Connecticut. And we do it for two reasons. We do it, one, to save citizens money, because we have over 800 members, and so we can negotiate great prices and save money for libraries, which means saving money for library users. We also do it to save libraries time, because your librarians don't have the time to be spending researching negotiations, handling contracts, and all the detailed logistics. We want your librarians to be out doing what they do best, serving you, creating wonderful programming, dynamic community services, and basically being that town green that we've all come to be. We do a lot of other things for libraries as well, but the funding we get from the state basically allows us to focus on the negotiations that we do. And we think it's a great return on investment. Last year, as people have said, and as you can see behind me, for $332,500 before the rescission, we were able to save Connecticut libraries $7.1 million. So how's that work out? Well, we have about an operating budget of about $550,000. So you can see we're lean and mean. We have a small staff. They put together a lot of deals. We work with over 40 vendors and suppliers for operating and bringing thousands of products to you. And that state operating grant is about 63% of our budget. So CLC is a real bargain. And I also want to point out that during the time when this state is looking for cost efficiencies, they should look no farther than the library community and for CLC for models. Because for decades, the cooperative library service units have modeled successful regional purchasing and operations. So this all sounds really important, but for those of you who are sitting here, particularly the young people, what does this really mean to you? And what it means is, if you live in Stamford, your library saved almost $200,000 on books, DVDs, and databases. That's a lot of money. And that's because they belong to CLC. And if you lived in Hartford, that was almost $160,000. And if that money goes away, it means your libraries won't be able to spend the same amount of money to get the same amount of books or DVDs or resources. They would have to spend less, you would see less materials in your libraries because they had less money and purchasing power. And this scenario would be repeated more than 800 times across Connecticut, from tiny libraries, as Beth talked about, from Colchester, where it's a small number, but it's an important percentage of her budget. And if Connecticut is cut, it gets even worse, because then your library doesn't have it, but even worse, you can't go borrow it from another library. So you may think that having less books isn't really a big deal. Some people, we beg to differ. But if you're a job seeker or a parent seeking early literacy help, you may be deeply affected also. Because some of the things that we've provided have been things like the extensive Job Now database that helps Connecticut residents get online resume help, GED test preparation, interview coaching, all that would not be affordable for many libraries without their CLC support. Parents seeking free, interactive ways to help their children read may find fewer, if any, of the popular early literacy stations at their libraries, and the list goes on and on. So that's why I'm here today, to ask for your support for the little, behind-the-scenes program that makes so much difference to your library. And I just wanted to say one more point. It's been talked about the fact that I was at the Simsbury Public Library, and in working with the job seekers and the entrepreneurs and the startup businesses there, I can tell you with firsthand experience that these cuts have a significant difference, even if you can't see the direct correlation that we're spelling out so plainly today. Because in my experience, when cuts are made to other programs, other social services programs, the problems don't go away. They just roll down to the library. And the library ends up serving the populations that are needy. And so this has a long-lasting effect, because you think about what we do, and you think about those librarians who now have an increased, population that they're trying to serve, and you think about them having to then spend more time on the phone negotiating to get books at a lower rate, it all starts to have a big impact. So as everyone here has said today, now is the time to be loud. We need everyone to write, call, meet, email all of your legislators, local, state, and ask them to support the funding for the Connecticut State Library and the cooperative library service units like CLC. Let them know these programs have a great return on investment. If you love libraries, speak up and let them know you need to fund Connecticut State Libraries. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. And just also a shout out that, just to make people realize, CLC does also save academic libraries money. And last but certainly not least, I'd like to introduce our current Vice President of the Connecticut Library Association, Beth Crowley. She's the Director of the Scranton Memorial Library in Madison and was previously a children's librarian and Manager of Public Services at the Groton Public Library. She is currently serving as our Vice President of the Connecticut Library Association and the President of the Lions Library Consortium. Beth.
Hi, this is amazing. This is my What a well-read group. This is just wonderful. Thank you so much for everyone that took the time to come out today. Thank you to my wonderful panel of speakers for agreeing to be here today. You guys said this beautifully. I'm just kind of being the cleanup hitter and will summarize a lot of what you heard today. I also thank you. I know a lot of our representatives and senators had to move on, but I also want to shout out to them a huge thank you for the support. Those people who are in the room, they get it, and we're here to help your colleagues who don't get it. So call on us, and we will continue to help you. I've been amazed at the amount of letters that have gone out. I've been CC'd on letters that people are sending in, and it's just amazing. This is so energizing and so life-affirming for me just as a librarian in Connecticut, and I just really want to thank you all for your support because it really is making a difference, as we heard, and it's really important, and we can't stop. We have to keep going. There's still a lot of work to do beyond this year into the future, because as Senator Kennedy, my representative, said, it's not just about getting the money back into the budget that we lost this year or is proposed to lose this year. It's about increasing that budget. We need to keep going. We need more money for our libraries. We do a good job, but we need more money. We are at the breaking point. We can't continue to go. The state library can't continue to work. You have librarians working 3 jobs because they are not replacing librarians. You have people working on classification that might be, because they're trying to fill in. They're trying to do jobs that other people were doing that are not being replaced. This is critical. So thank you all for your support. And I also wanted to mention, one of the reasons that we do this time of year is because it's National Library Week.
That's right.
And as I'm sure many of you have seen on social media, author Neil Gaiman has a great quote for National Library Week. He says, "It's still National Library Week. You should be especially nice to a librarian today or tomorrow. Sometime this week anyway. Probably the librarians would like tea, or chocolate, or a reliable source of funding." I've been a librarian for 15 years, so a little shorter amount of time than some of my colleagues here. But I'm mad too, Maxine. I'm mad that I still have to keep explaining why libraries are relevant today. It's very important to understand why libraries are under the education budget, because we are about education. This isn't a frivolous perk. Reading, as we heard so eloquently from our team speaker, Elizabeth, is not about just, having some leisure time. This is about education for everyone. And I'm going to tell you briefly who my inspiration was for becoming a librarian. It was my grandmother. And I happened to notice this morning that just serendipitously, her last name was Red. So, and we chose red as our library support color. She was a single mother in the 1940s, became a single mother when my grandfather walked out on her and her 5 children right after my mother was born. She didn't have a steady job, she took in laundry, she didn't have a driver's license, but she could walk her kids to the local public library, and she knew that education and reading was the key to getting them out of the situation they were in. And she did that, and she instilled that love in my mother, who went on to become a wonderful nurse, worked for the state for many years in that capacity, and then she passed that love on to me. And that was my inspiration for becoming a librarian. Because it's about equal access to information. It's the North Star of our library service. is a cornerstone of an educated citizenry regardless of socioeconomic status. If the programs in the governor's budget are cut, equal access to that information will be gone. Library services our citizens have known it for over 4 decades will be gone. And if you want a really easy example of what it will look like, all you have to do is go north. New Hampshire, Vermont, they don't have this privilege. In New Hampshire, I was talking to a colleague the other day, and she said, if I want to go to my neighbor town to borrow books, I have to pay $135 for a library card. That's what would happen.
That's what it was.
This is what would happen, because we can't do what we do now without this money. And as I mentioned before, often when the talk of funding comes up, it's paired with relevance. Why do we need to fund libraries? Why are they still relevant in the digital age? Probably my least favorite question that I get asked all the time. And it is because we're about information, regardless of the format. But it's more than that. It's because, as many people already have said today, libraries remain relevant because we are the place in the community where anyone is welcome. Regardless of age or socioeconomic status, a person can walk through our doors and instantly belong. Everyone, from the tiniest baby that I've worked with in lab set programs to our oldest residents, anyone belongs. And that's where in libraries, citizens, from our youngest to our oldest, can become literate. They can find jobs. They can pay their taxes. They can become a published author. They can become leaders of our communities. They can find out how to send their kids to college. And they can smile again after a tragedy. If you want to know the powerful impact of our libraries on Connecticut, talk to the residents in Newtown. What that library did for those residents was amazing. What other libraries did for their residents after Hurricane Sandy and Hurricane Irene was amazing. We were more than just a place for books. We were a place for comfort. We were a place for a shelter. We were a place for compassion and just an ear to listen. And we do that every day at no extra cost. But we know these services aren't free to us to provide, and that is why this funding is really important, both through our local governments and through the programs provided through the state. But these it's not just money that's in the state budget. These are programs that are in our state laws. And that's crucial to remember. With these cuts, not only does the funding go away, but the laws that guarantee them go away. And that can't happen. That's 40 years of work, over 40 years of work, that can't happen. We know that there are many programs, including other important programs even within the education budget, that our leaders have to figure out how to pay for. And we recognize this as libraries. We realize that other programs are important and need funding. And that's why we have regionalized our services over 40 years. It's why we share with each other, to keep our ask as low as we can. And you have heard the speakers talk about the amazing return on investment that they are getting. But as I have suggested, the return is not just in the monetary value we provide, but in the assurance that with free and equal access to the information, our citizens' lives will be better. Their choices will be more numerous, and their contributions to our state will be greater. Don't let our lawmakers set Connecticut libraries back 40 years just to save a few bucks. These programs work, they save money, their value is much greater than their cost, and they represent regionalism at its best. So we had, last year, I was up here, same day last year, we had a program with, to have people sign the Declaration to the Right for Libraries. I know many of you have already signed it today. If you haven't signed it, we are going to have clipboards out in the hall, so please do that. But before we wrap up, I want to introduce to you someone who's been very important to the Connecticut Library Association over the years. That's our lobbyist, Bobby Shea.
Thank you very much for coming. Thank you, Beth. This is not quite red, but my daughter's going to Fordham next year, so that's why I'm couple of quick things. Number one, I'm very honored to work with you folks and have been for 8 or 9 years. We'll keep fighting together. Number two, there's if you're hungry, there's a nice cafeteria literally right below us. So while you're here, you can get something to eat or some snacks. And very importantly, that you are here, following up on what the state reps and state senators said. you should stop by their offices while you're here and see if they're around today. Some of the lawmakers are here, you can say hello to them, but if they're not available or they're not here, you can at least leave a handwritten note. Leave a handwritten note that says, you know, my state rep is Brian Becker from West Hartford. Dear Representative Becker, I'm Bob Shea from West Hartford. I was visiting the Legislative Office Building today to support library funding. We really appreciate your support. Here's my phone number. So you can leave a note at all the offices here in the building. So I think while you're here, that's a very important thing to do. I'm going to be sitting right outside of this room. There's like an alcove with my hat on. So you can come up to me and I'll stay there as long as you folks are here. You can come up to me and I'll tell you who your state rep is, who your state senator is, and where his or her office is located. So thank you very much for coming, and go Libraries. I'll be right up.
Well, thanks everyone for coming. Especially I want to thank our legislative committee members and everybody that volunteered and came out today. Go Libraries. Thank you.